What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to A Therapeutic Edge. Today, on the table in front of us, we have, well, what is one of my all-time, and I mean all-time favorite budget knives. This is the Byrd Raven 2. Now, Byrd is Spyderco. This is a budget line that they run, which is interesting because they also have knives like the Tenacious, which is a budget Spyderco. But this is a separate line under the Byrd name, and as you can see, it's got a much different shaped eye hole than the Spydercos. This line has a whole bunch of really interesting knives in it, and this, of course, is my favorite. You can tell I love this knife. I've put a deep carry clip on it. It's running on washers. It is CTS BD1 blade steel, which is an excellent working steel in the budget range. It has a very nice edge on it, and the action, although it doesn't really drop shut because of the washers, it does snap open with a Spidey flick like nobody's business. I've had this knife for years now, and I come back to it a lot, particularly when I'm in a place or an environment where I don't want to be carrying one of my expensive knives. This is a budget knife, and by budget, I mean about 50 bucks, right around there somewhere, that allows me to have a ton of functionality and fair amount of, it's got a fair bit of style. I love the way this thing is designed. But with a knife that if I lose it or if something happens to it, it's not the end of the world. One of the knives that reminds me of sort of most is the Manix 2, particularly when it comes to the blade size. As you can see, they're very, very similar. Now, this is probably closer to a PM knife, one of the paramilitaries, but I don't have one of those, so we're going to go with the Manix. In other words, it is very reminiscent of a very traditional Spyderco, just for a lot less money. Now, you can get a Manix lightweight in CTS BD1 for about 119 bucks, or you could skip that and get the Byrd Raven 2 for 50 bucks. Same blade steel, similar design. I'm not sure why Spyderco does this, but I'm glad they do. I love this thing. It is very, very comfortable in hand. This way, choked up into this marvelously jimped choil. It's got a great ramp for your thumb. Of course, it's a Spyderco, so it's great for draw cuts. Very good for push cuts. This is a fantastic knife. It really is. I love the open back construction. We've talked about that in a couple of my reviews. It means it's very easy to keep clean. Let's get some specs out of the way so we know what we're talking about. Now, Spyderco has a very odd version of handle to blade ratio. And this knife, of course, is no different. It's not a big knife. You get 1, 2, just under 3 inches of cutting surface on 3 inches of CTS BD1 steel. The overall knife is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 3/4 inches long. It is a compact knife. I say again, I have had this knife for years at this point. Their CTS BD1 on this knife holds an edge remarkably well. The only thing is that over time, I've noticed that, of course, my lock bar has begun to move over, and we are at a little over 100% engagement at this point. We're just at 50% on the blade itself, but it's still very smooth. And even with that level of lock, which just makes it very secure, there is no blade rock, no wiggle, no nothing, it just pushes out of the way very easily and closes like a dream. This is a great knife. I know I keep saying that, but you know, you guys know from my collection and on my channel that I have some ridiculously expensive knives and some cheap ones too. This knife continues to come back to me in such a way that now that I've realized I am starting to wear down the lock bar a little bit, rather than just go, oh well, and move on, it is entirely likely that I will get another one of these. It is so good in the pocket. Now, this is an MXG clip. It fits this knife and a number of other Spydercos. It makes this nice and deep carry, as you can see. It basically drops the knife out of existence in your pocket. And the knife is relatively thin, which makes that a really good thing too. Let's take a look at that while I've got you out here. This knife, nope, we're going to do this. I know what I'm doing. Hush. Oh my goodness. This knife is under a 1/2 inch through the middle, which is very, very nice. And if we go to millimeters, you will see that the blade stock, maybe back here at its thickest point, is almost 4 millimeters of CTS BD1. So you get a nice thick blade of good steel with good action on washers from a relatively thin build with good ergonomics. I really enjoy the way this thing feels in hand. Which, of course, those are all Spyderco's sort of trademark move. I mean, that makes this a really good Spyderco, but for $50 less than you're going to pay for anything similar if this was a circle instead of that shape. Again, I have no idea why Spyderco makes these. They compete directly with other than that. You could get, for instance, a Spyderco Tenacious, which is very similar in dimensions, for about $50. That's 8CR13 MOV, which is an okay steel for a budget knife, but not nearly as good as CTS BD1. So I don't know. I don't care. These are out there, and if you want one, go get it. If you're looking for an introduction to Spydercos and why people think they're so good, this is a great place to start. We're going to throw it up against, our old friend, the Rat Model 1. And as you can see, the Rat 1 is a much, much bigger knife. Much heavier, too. Here is the Rat Model 2. The Byrd Raven, the Raven 2, is a really good mid-size, mid-weight knife. It's one of those knives that I will always have in my collection, period. If this one wears out, if I break it, if something happens to it, I will get another one because it is consistently a great knife to have in the pocket. Well, anyway, gang, I hope you've enjoyed this. This, again, is the Byrd Raven 2 in CTS BD1. I have been a Therapeutic Edge. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments. Please like the video on your way out and the little like button that's just down here somewhere. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. I would love to have you here on a regular basis. We'll see you next time.